Whenever somewhere is off limits, it immediately draws a fascination from those who cannot get inside. We want to know why. Sometimes places are prohibited for our own safety or religious purposes, but other times the reasons are unclear. These are 5 places you're not allowed to visit. Number 5. The Ise Grand Shrine in Japan is one of the holiest sites in the traditional Shinto religion. It's visited by pilgrims and tourists alike, but one area of the complex is out of bounds to all. Kotai Jinju is the inner shrine and is one of many shrines at the site, but it's here where it's believed the goddess Amaterasu dwells. The shrine was originally built 2,000 years ago, crafted entirely out of wood and bearing no resemblance to contemporary architecture on the Asian mainland. Every 20 years since the late 700s, the shrine has been dismantled and built from scratch on another plot of land within the complex. It cost millions of dollars, but is symbolic for the Shinto belief in death and the renewal of nature. It was the last rebuild in 2013 and is in the 62nd identical iteration. The dismantling and rebuilding takes around 8 years to complete, meaning the inner shrine can occasionally exist in 2 places at once. Access to the inner shrine is strictly prohibited. It's surrounded by 4 rows of fences, but visitors are only allowed past the first fence. Beyond the gates is a divine palace, built entirely out of wood. It's here that the holy mirror is said to be enshrined. According to the Shinto religion, the mirror was forged by a god in order to lure Amaterasu out of a cave she'd hidden herself in. According to legend, it was later given to the Japanese royal family, who are Amaterasu's descendants. Only the Japanese royal family and the most senior priests are permitted to see the mirror, as well as the 2 other sacred treasures believed to have been given to them by the gods. However, this fact has led some to speculate the mirror isn't housed at the shrine. Of the 3 sacred treasures, the mirror was the only treasure not presented to Japanese Emperor Naruhito when he took the throne last year. Number 4. The Vatican isn't the only church organization with secret archives hidden from the public. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has its own archive, stored in a vault carved into the side of a mountain. The Granite Mountain Record Vault is built to withstand not just intruders, but natural disasters and even nuclear strikes. It was created in the 1960s, built by blasting into the side of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Workers tunneled for around 700 feet until they hit a different type of rock and couldn't go any further. When it was finished in 1963, there were 3 long narrow tunnels and 4 cross tunnels connecting them. Each entrance was guarded by reinforced doors built to withstand a nuclear blast, while 675 feet of granite rock protected the tunnels from above. It cost $2 million at the time, and further additions in the years since have only added to the cost. The huge effort to protect the archive has obviously drawn much attention from those outside the church, especially as only church employees are permitted to physically enter the vault. However, we do supposedly know what's in the vault: genealogy records. The church claims there are 2.4 million rolls of microfilm containing 3.5 billion images of family history records. There are records from all over the world dating back to before the Common Era. It's not entirely surprising, as Mormons believe God told Israelites settling in the New World to preserve ancestral genealogies, and genealogy research is a sacred act. However, the sheer amount of security has led many to question whether genealogy records is all that's stored down there. Visitors aren't permitted, as archivists don't want dirt and dust from the outside world disturbing the archives, but much of the genealogy records have now been digitized, and duplicates of the microfilms have been sent to the Family History Library. However, as with the Vatican archives, it's impossible for us to know what else may be in the vault. As well as the genealogy records, we know that the archive holds a range of church materials, including scriptures, minutes from priesthood quorums, and financial records. Some have speculated the archives might also contain religious artifacts, such as those found by the church founder when he supposedly discovered God's message about preserving records. Number 3. On May 29, 1953, humans finally reached the peak of the Earth's tallest mountain when Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached Mount Everest's summit. Since then, more than 4,000 have reached the highest point on our planet, but there are still many mountains humans have not overcome. One such of these unclimbed mountains is Gungar Puensum. The mountain lies on the border between Bhutan and China, in the Himalayan mountain range. It's 7,570 meters tall, the 40th tallest mountain in the world and the tallest that has been climbed by humans. The record is unlikely to be taken away anytime soon. In 1994, Bhutan passed a law prohibiting the climbing of mountains more than 6,000 meters tall. Officially, this is due in part to lack of rescue services in the area, but mostly for spiritual reasons, as the mountains are believed to be the home of the gods. It's also believed by some to be an effort to preserve the locals' traditional way of life. In 2004, the government went one step further and banned all mountain climbing within Bhutan's borders. Only treks are allowed. As is often the case, the draw to conquer the unclimbed has been too much for some people, and there have been expeditions that have sought to find a way around Bhutan's ban. For years after the initial ban, a group of Japanese mountain climbers set off to reach Gungar Puensum's peak by approaching the Tibetan side of the mountain. While most countries agree the mountain is almost entirely within Bhutan's borders, China argues its border with Bhutan is precisely on Gungar Puensum's summit. The Japanese expedition could legally reach the summit without crossing into Bhutan territory. However, this caused outrage from Bhutan and the rest of the world, and the Chinese Mountaineering Association withdrew the team's permit. Instead, they climbed the mountain's subsidiary peak, which is entirely within Tibet. The team was the last group to attempt to climb Gungar Puensum, and unless there's a change in authority in the area, they're likely to be the last. Bhutan is not the only place to ban mountain climbing for spiritual reasons. Many other mountains in the Himalayas cannot be scaled, and in 2019, Australia announced tourists would no longer be allowed to climb Uluru, which is sacred to the Aborigines in the area. Number 2. Unlike the likes of Area 51 and Australia's Pine Gap, there are no stories of extraterrestrials surrounding Minworth Hill in North Yorkshire, England, despite the alien-like structures that locals can see beyond the perimeter fence. The golf balls, as they're locally known, are a sign of what's hidden inside the top-secret Royal Air Force base that has been called a US enclave. They're radomes, weatherproof structures that protect radar antenna. In the 1970s, there were 4 of these structures, but that's since been ballooned to more than 30, as Minworth Hill became one of the United States' most important overseas bases. Originally built in 1954, the British government soon made the base available to the US Department of Defense. Since then, it has effectively been under US control, and is now part of the National Security Agency's operations. Officially, Minworth's mission is to provide intelligence support for UK, US, and allied interests. Human rights activists have campaigned for years for more information about the site, specifically whether it was involved in US-targeted killing operations. The UK government insisted that information was a matter of national security, and what happened at Minworth Hill remained a secret. All that was said on the matter was that Minworth Hill provided rapid radio relay and conducted communications research. However, in 2016, journalists obtained files that revealed how significant the British base was to NSA operations in collecting information. Work done at Minworth Hill involved harvesting data from more than 300 million emails and phone calls in just a single day, using both the antenna protected by the golf ball structures and US government satellites. The facility also helped to create new spy technology used in controversial US operations in the Middle East. Access to Minworth Hill is extremely restricted. People working there live in self-contained communities, so have no reason to leave the base. There's even a bowling alley and fast food restaurant on site. The perimeter fence is patrolled 24 hours a day by armed military police and monitored by cameras. Security on the base itself continues to be developed, with new security barriers being introduced last year. The high levels of security are in stark contrast to the area the base is surrounded by. Nidderdale is officially an area of natural beauty and is visited by tourists aiming to explore the natural landscape. Number 1. A lot of strange things happened during the Cold War. Many of them the public would never get to find out about. City 40 in Russia is a relic of that time, a closed-off city where inhabitants weren't allowed to write letters to the outside world. To their friends and family, they were simply missing. To the rest of the world, they didn't exist. While most of the Soviet Union was suffering through a famine, the 100,000 people living inside this city were living a life of paradise. There was plenty of food, good schools, and even cultural activities. Unsurprisingly, this city was little more than a mask for a huge nuclear plant that would kickstart the Soviets' nuclear project. The residents were the scientists that had come from all over the world to work for the Union on the project, as well as their families, and the workers needed to help keep the plant in the city running smoothly. Straight away, the signs of radiation sickness in the residents was clear. The government tried to withhold the effects of exposure to the radiation on their health, but it didn't stop people from getting sick and dying. In 1975, the cooling system in a cistern containing radioactive waste failed. It then exploded, sending radiation over an area of 200,000 square kilometers. It was the biggest nuclear disaster at the time and remains the third biggest disaster to this day. Authorities tried to cover up the accident, but when farmers were told to slaughter their livestock and destroy their crops, it was clear something was wrong. 10,000 people were evacuated from villages in the affected area, though the government refused to give a reason. The residents of City 40 remained, however. Despite the fact radiation levels in the city are still deadly, and the plutonium levels in the nearby lake have earned it the nickname Lake Death, there are still 82,000 people living inside the city. It remains the image of paradise, as it had been during the Cold War, and would remind Western viewers of something from the Twilight Zone or Black Mirror. Residents are aware of the health consequences from living in the gated community, but still choose to stay and raise families there. There are multiple schools, colleges, and affiliates of universities. Residents consider themselves privileged to live in City 40 and believe their children get the best opportunities. To the residents that live in City 40, the fences that surround the city aren't there to keep them in, but to keep the outside world out. Residents are permitted to come and go as they please, but entrance to non-residents and non-Russians is strictly prohibited, without special permission from the Russian secret police. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.